The Lotus 99T Honda from 1987 was the first Formula 1 car ever to win a Grand Prix with a computer-controlled active suspension. In the previous 1986 season, Ayrton Senna had a difficult time competing in his Renault-powered Lotus against the more powerful Williams-Honda combination.
And look at the way that the first three are breaking away. Senna, the Williams and the McLaren absolutely together, and Piquet going through and trying to take Senna. One Brazilian passes another, and we've got a third leader before even one lap has been completed.
After Renault pulled out of Formula 1 at the end of 1986, Lotus signed a deal with Honda for the use of their turbocharged V6 engines in 1987. However, Honda had an existing deal with Williams, which allowed Williams exclusive use of the new 1987 spec Honda unit. Lotus instead used the less powerful 1986 spec turbo engine. Lotus also had a new title sponsor and livery, with the black and gold of Jan Player Special being replaced by the bright yellow and blue of Camel. The Lotus 99T was designed by Jacarepaguá. Jacarepaguá was known to have a close working relationship with Ayrton Senna. The Lotus 99T was famous for having an innovative computer-controlled active suspension. In the next two video clips you will get a very good technical explanation about it.
Active suspension obviously does its job superbly, but how does it work?
Active suspension is made up of two principal components. One is a hydraulic suspension medium, and the hydraulic suspension medium is controlled by an onboard computer, which in turn is receiving signals and inputs from lots of sensors fitted to the components of the car. We have the ability to maintain the platform of the car at a very steady level, whilst the wheels follow very accurately the contours of the road. And the bonus of this, of course, is in handling and in tire wear. But for the driver it means an extreme degree of comfort that's never been experienced before in a Formula 1 car.
I'm standing beside the most advanced racing machine the sport has ever known. It's the Honda engine Camel Lotus 99. And one of the reasons it deserves that description, because it's the only car racing today with a hydraulically actuated, computer-controlled, active suspension system as opposed to a passive suspension system. The heart of the system is this digital computer located underneath the driver's seat. If the computer is the brain of the system, then the eyes, ears, and sense of touch are sensors, 18 of them located at strategic suspension points, and a pair of pitot tubes on the nose that measure air coming in. The pitot tube is found on an airplane and tells the pilot how fast his plane is going through the air. At all four corners of the car, and we're here at the left rear now, is a hydraulic actuating strut with a control unit on top. After the computer has received all the information from the 18 sensors in the two pitot tubes, it tells each corner of the car whether it should be higher or lower. Hydraulic pressure is provided by this pump on the exhaust cam of the left-hand engine bank. Now, what does it all mean? Well, aerodynamics, as evidenced by the wings on the car, is a very important part of racing today. And for a car to be aerodynamically perfect, the ride height must be constant. So the active suspension system maintains a standard ride height. The car is going very fast down a straightaway, air rushing over the winds presses it too close to the ground. In slow corners, it's too far off the ground. The active suspension system corrects all that. Here's a very interesting demonstration provided through the courtesy of one of the Lotus team members who's blowing into the pitot tube to simulate the car going faster through the air. You can see what happens to the suspension as he does that.
For some onboard footage, Lotus No. 2 driver Satoru Nakajima had a fancy-looking Foca camera on his car during the season. Lotus 99T proved to be competitive in Senna's hands. The Brazilian won at Monaco and Detroit and scored 6 more podium finishes during the season.
Mansell, on the other hand, was in indomitable form. He was clearly the fastest throughout qualifying, forcing the Williams through the streets to end up 3/4 of a second clear of Senna, who was just 4/100ths ahead of Piquet. But just how unforgiving Monaco can be was demonstrated by Jacarepaguá, who let his Ferrari bounce over a curb.
Well, it was Mansell versus Senna again, but this time Mansell was determined to do it right. He led from the green light, with Senna, Piquet, Alboreto and Prost in pursuit. As ever, there was plenty of bumping and boring in Saint-Devote on lap 1. But as the tight queue thundered through the narrow streets, up the hill to Casino Square, and then down again towards the harbour, Mansell was already easing away at the front. To back, and Mansell's lead was bigger, but Senna was settling down in second place. And behind Piquet, Alboreto was looking good. Rascasse, full bore in bottom gear, but Senna was dropping back. Down from Casino Square and past the tip-top bar, the pattern was set. Mansell, Senna, Piquet, Alboreto, Prost and Cheever in the arrows. At Monaco, the barriers are ever beckoning. But on lap 29, the pattern changed. Mansell slowed. Senna was on his turn. And out of the chicane and along the waterfront, the Lotus went through. Mansell was clearly in trouble. In the pits, the mechanics waited to rush into action, optimistically changing tyres. But Senna was long gone. And Mansell was out of the car, a broken exhaust pipe robbing him of Honda power. The two arrows of Cheever and Warr were going well, split by Berger's Ferrari. But as Senna reeled off the laps, suddenly both the arrows were out. By contrast, Senna's Lotus never missed a beat. On his final lap, even before the checkered flag, he was accepting applause from the marshals. Following him home in a fine 5th place was Jonathan Palmer, non-turbo category winner. There was delight in the Lotus pit as Ayrton scored the first win for active suspension.
Senna was a happy man. In Monte Carlo, you're not supposed to spray the princely family with champagne. It smacks of drenched majesty. And Peter Warr tried to act as a shield, so the frustrated Ayrton turned his attention onto a policeman, among others. Nigel Mansell took another fine pole position, while Ayrton Senna, still on a high after his Monaco win, showed how well the active suspension Lotus worked over the Detroit bumps by taking second on the grid. Nelson Piquet, who says he dislikes street circuits, took 3rd place on the grid, but he was 1.3 seconds slower than Mansell. Detroit may not have the glamour of Monte Carlo, but it's an even tighter round-the-houses track, and street circuit expert Nigel Mansell was determined to find recompense for his bad luck at Monaco.
And he set about the task from the green light with a perfect start from pole. Senna 2nd, Piquet 3rd, and Cheever, after a stunning getaway from the 3rd row, in 4th place. It was looking like Monaco all over again. Mansell ahead and pulling away, Senna leading the pursuit, Prost down in the traffic, watching for lap 1 shunts. And predictably these happened. One involved Satoru Nakajima's Lotus, which we could share with his onboard camera. After clouting the back of Capelli's march, he recovered from that, and then going down to the next corner, he nearly collected the back of Alio's Lola. Things got a bit better for the next couple of corners, but then came a thump from behind, and the Lotus was spinning to a halt. From another angle, we can see that he has collided with the Minardi of Campos. While all that was happening at the back, the front, Mansell was building up a big lead from Senna, and Piquet was being harried by the impressive Chiva. Chiva managed to muscle past Piquet on lap 3 because the Williams had a puncture and was on its way to the pits. So Chiva was now third. The only American in Grand Prix racing was certainly shining in his home Grand Prix. 2 laps after half distance, Mansell, with a comfortable lead, came in for a routine tyre stop. Senna, who had worries about his brakes, didn't look really threatening at this stage. But Nigel's stop was a slow one. The right rear tyre jammed. And by the time Nigel rejoined, he dropped to third. Now Senna led. 10 laps to go, and suddenly Piquet was second. And Prost was third. Nigel Mansell was slipping back. He was in great pain from cramp in his right leg and was now threatened by Berger's Ferrari. All this time Senna, having made no tyre stop, was maintaining his lead on his original rubber and setting fastest lap on the way. Over Detroit's bumps, the mix of his skill and the Lotus active suspension had proved unbeatable. Piquet's second was reward for a really hard drive after that early puncture. Not only were Brazilians 1 and 2 in the race, now a Brazilian was leading the World Championship.
So 2 in a row for Senna.
Senna's win at Detroit was the final ever Grand Prix win for the Lotus team in Formula 1. In Italy at Monza, Senna was about to win the race, but on badly worn tyres he made a mistake.
Senna was long gone, until with 8 laps to go as he lapped Ginzani in the Parabolica, he ran wide. In this immense moment, Senna kept his foot down, but in all the dust, Piquet had slipped by. Now Senna, on his worn tyres, set about closing on Piquet. He's never a man to give up, and in the remaining laps, Senna broke the lap record repeatedly as he closed on the Williams Honda. But Nelson had control of the situation. He watched his mirrors, he drove to preserve his car, and as they raced towards the finish line, there was only 1.8 seconds in it. The start line official was so excited by the race that he forgot to hang out his checkered flag. But Piquet was the winner of the Italian Grand Prix by less than 2 seconds from Ayrton Senna.
While Senna was able to take wins on bumpy street circuits at both Monaco and Detroit, the Lotus 99T with active suspension proved difficult to set up for other circuits. Senna came to the conclusion that Lotus was not able to provide him with a championship-winning car. So after 3 years with Lotus, Senna would move to McLaren Honda for 1988 and would win his first World Drivers' Championship. To end this video, let's do a lap with Senna on board at Monaco.